Tonight, a family is grieving after a woman was killed at her workplace.
Without her talking to you, the aura and the energy she gave just made you feel better.
We hear from Julia Ferguson's brother on how she'll be remembered and share the latest on the suspect's charges. Plus,
rising up means electing governments that will strengthen our social safety nets, protect public services.
The annual Labor Day parade returns to Toronto's streets. Ahead of Canadians heading to the polls, what party leaders are promising workers. And
last night it was like going to bed thinking it was Christmas morning the next day. We knew that it was the big day today.
A sea of black and yellow in the stands, the Tiger Cats power past the Argos to remain undefeated at home on Labor Day. We'll have more on the significance of this match. Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. A Toronto woman who was stabbed last week at the law firm where she works has died. Julia Ferguson was admitted to hospital Thursday and taken off life support yesterday. Now police say the man who stabbed her has been charged with second-degree murder. As Dale Manukduk tells us, the attack was targeted, but the victim was not.
Julia Ferguson's older brother Chris is still in shock.
I'm in disbelief, and then I'll lose composure. It's just pure shock. And I mean, until the end, there was a lot of hope.
She was stabbed on Thursday at the law firm she worked at and died in hospital yesterday.
The suspect, who is now accused, it's been identified as Osman, 33, of Toronto. The original charges for the accused were attempt murder, aggravated assault, and assault with a weapon, and those charges are being upgraded to second-degree murder.
Police say Osman turned himself in to 51 Division shortly after the stabbing. He's been remanded into custody.
This attack was not random. The accused had a relationship with the business premise there.
He did not have a relationship with Julia Ferguson, who leaves behind a partner, mother, brother, and nephew. They had a family weekend in her hometown of London just 2 weeks ago, the last time her mother saw her. Chris Ferguson says she leaves behind a special legacy.
Without having to talk to her and without her talking to you, the aura and the energy she gave just made you feel better.
He remembers driving to Toronto for Leafs games during Julia's decade living in the city.
And that was just kind of one of our things, is I would drive to Toronto and complain the whole way about the drive, and then complain about the Leafs losing, and then she just would make it all better. So it was always worth it. And that's why I kept going back.
Chris isn't sure whether justice will bring his family closure. Police haven't ruled out adding additional charges for Osman. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Investigators remain at the scene of a Scarborough home tonight after the bodies of 2 people were found inside the residence. Police were called to the location near Kingston Road and Scarborough Golf Club Road around 8 last night. Inside, officers found the 2 victims with obvious signs of trauma. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. 26-year-old Kyle Sekera of Toronto has been arrested and is facing 2 counts of second-degree murder. Police have not disclosed the identity of the victims. And a woman is in life-threatening condition after a shooting in Brampton.
Upon arrival, what our officers have done is we've secured the scene, made sure everything's secure here, and we've ensured that all the area residents are safe.
Emergency crews were called to a home near Kennedy Road and Clarence Street just after 3 p.m. A 19-year-old woman was found with gunshot wounds. She was taken by Peel paramedics to a trauma center in serious condition, but it has since worsened. Police are asking anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers. Well, this year, unions are pushing for workers' rights to be front and center of the federal election campaign. With just 2 weeks to go until voting day, we're hearing more from the parties on what they plan to do when it comes to workers' rights. Farah Morali has more.
An annual tradition back for the first time in 2 years, the Labor Day cavalcade. Bikes, cars, and people made their way down Queen Street West.
Not how we would typically do it, with thousands of us here marching in solidarity, but we're going to do what best we can considering the circumstances.
Though smaller than celebrations in the past because of the pandemic, this year's Labor Day in Ontario feels different for another reason.
The fact that there's a federal election going on makes it even better. Absolutely, we get to really show off what we're all about.
Today, the leaders of the 3 major federal parties spent time in Ontario, each targeting workers in their campaign promises.
A Conservative government will double the Canada Workers' Benefit.
Erin O'Toole pledged to boost the federal tax credit for low-income workers and to have it dispensed more frequently.
We believe in putting in place 10 federally regulated paid sick days.
The NDP introduced its plan for federal paid sick days and to work with each province and territory to bring in its own program. And
we'll extend the Canada Recovery Hiring Program.
Justin Trudeau touted his government's record during the pandemic and pledged to keep a program going that helps address labor shortages. But how are these pledges sitting with workers?
My message to the federal parties that this is an opportunity for them to get it right.
The theme of this year's Labor Day celebrations, Rise Up Recovery. And union members here say they're looking for more than just benefits to help workers who have suffered through the pandemic, like better pay, safe working conditions, and job security.
Rising up means electing governments that will strengthen our social safety nets, protect public services, and enact labor laws that protect workers in all sectors, including those in the gig economy.
2 weeks today, Canadians head to the polls. The hope from workers here that campaign promises on Labor Day aren't forgotten after Election Day. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
A scary situation on the campaign trail for Liberal leader Justin Trudeau. While in London, angry protesters threw rocks at him. Trudeau was visiting a restaurant in the city. It happened as he was getting on his campaign bus. RCMP rushed to get him inside. This was just after 6 o'clock tonight. Trudeau has drawn protesters at many stops during the election campaign. Some patients across Ontario say their family doctor still won't see them in person, only virtually, and it's impacting their care. The province has determined it's once again safe for doctors to see patients in their office. But as Samantha Beattie reports, some are slow to make the switch back.
First-time mom Michelle Sadowski has been trying all summer to get her 1-year-old son Avery in to see his doctor.
It got to a point where he had been sick for probably 4 or 5 weeks, and he was still sick, and the cough got worse, and all of his symptoms kept getting worse, not better.
But she says she was told by his clinic it's too risky. Instead, they've had to wait 2 hours at a hospital where Avery was diagnosed with a double ear infection.
It's just been this ongoing struggle to get him seen in person, and now I have this fear that there's going to be an ear infection that gets missed, and so we're running back to St. Joe's. And while St. Joe's is a wonderful resource to have, it's just not ideal for the kid with the runny nose and the cough and potential ear infection that needs to be seen.
The Patient Ombudsman Office says it has recently received complaints from fully vaccinated patients who still can't see their family doctor in person. But the Ontario College of Family Physicians says that's changing.
Really, this shift that's happened from pretty much most of our care being given virtually at the early part of the pandemic, again, under ministry guidance, to what we know the data shows now, which is actually about 50% of visits are now in person.
I encourage everyone.
Toronto family doctor Nilly Kaplan-Mirth sees the majority of her patients in person and says it's safe and necessary.
I'm seeing babies and children who need their routine immunizations. I'm seeing women who need their regular cervical cancer screening. I'm seeing seniors who need to come in to talk. I have mental health patients who come into the office. There are many ways in which we can do this safely.
Dr. Tara Kieran is taking the same approach, but has noticed other doctors are more reluctant.
Some of my colleagues are still in a virtual first mentality. And, that's been the mentality for 15, 16 months now. So it's going to take some time for people to switch over.
For Sadowski, that means it will be back to the hospital if Avery continues to feel sick.
And so we're all just kind of frustrated and out of luck.
Samantha Beattie, CBC News, Toronto.
Durham Region is confirming a second COVID-19 related death at a long-term care home. 2 residents at Hillsdale Estates in Oshawa have died after testing positive this past weekend, part of a larger outbreak at the home. Durham says 95% of residents and 83% of staff are vaccinated. But one doctor and advocate says that's not enough.
Sure, it's 83%, but we know we should be at least 90-95% in the context of Delta. We're not where we need to be. And it just takes one mistake.
Stamatopoulos is calling for the provincial government to mandate vaccinations for all long-term care workers. But a provincial spokesperson told CBC News that long-term care homes are in the best position to develop their own vaccination policies. Durham says there are 16 active cases among residents at Hillsdale right now and 6 among staff. New border measures will be in place across the country starting tomorrow, allowing fully vaccinated foreign nationals to enter the country for non-essential travel.
They will need to submit to a pre-arrival test. They will have to be demonstrating they're fully vaccinated, send us their information through ArriveCan. If traveling by air and they haven't met all of those criteria, they're not getting onto the plane.
People entering Canada will have to be fully immunized with a Health Canada approved vaccine. American travelers have already been coming to Canada since August 9th. The border reopening is part of a two-pronged approach aimed at staggering movement into the country again. Toronto's Pearson Airport is expecting an increase in travel and is warning of possible delays. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at the forecast, and not a bad day to be outside today, Colette.
Thanks, Talia. Yeah, coming off of that storminess this morning, then turned into a fair day, although a little breezy, and some decent temperatures. In fact, even a little bit above seasonal for this time of year. But now we're looking at another system that we're going to have to start thinking about. Not for tomorrow. I know there are many going back to school. Things will be pretty quiet and looking really good through the daytime hours, so quite a lot of sunshine to go around. But as we get towards the evening, that's when we look towards cottage country and then eventually into southwestern Ontario, where we could even see some active weather. So we'll be watching that carefully. Again, that's later in the day tomorrow. It'll hit the GTA tomorrow evening and then on towards eastern parts of the province there, towards the Ottawa Valley and beyond, really more towards the overnight and wee morning hours into Wednesday. I'll have more on that coming up. But for Toronto tonight, 13 degrees, just a few clouds, but some patchy fog development, especially towards the Niagara region. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll get into some increasing clouds, stronger winds from the south, pushing up the humidity and the temperature to 26 degrees. Again, we'll look province-wide when I come back.
Thanks, Colette. This evening marks the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the celebration of the Jewish New Year.
Even though we're going to have a large gathering, the majority of our community is still participating in services through live stream. For understandable reasons, they still feel like it's too risky.
The Beth Tikva Synagogue held a small prayer session tonight. Fewer than 50 people were in attendance with physical distancing measures in place. Rabbi Grover is hopeful with more people getting vaccinated that more people will be able to attend service soon. Advocates want the issue of food insecurity to get more attention in the lead up to the federal election. They say they're looking for more from the parties on how to reduce poverty and address the cost of living.
When we talk about the number one election issue facing Canadians across the country, it's affordability. And it's no wonder that incomes have not kept pace and with rising house prices primarily being the driver for inaffordability.
Hetherington says the demand for food charity is growing, adding June was the busiest month they've ever had. He and other food bank operators say they want solutions from federal candidates that makes it easier for people to afford food and other necessities. It's back to school for many kids tomorrow, and it'll be a school year that looks very different with the vast majority of people vaccinated. The province is staggering the return throughout the week for cohorts to try to limit the amount of people in schools. Ontario school staff who are not vaccinated will have to provide 2 negative COVID-19 rapid tests each week. Rapid antigen tests will be deployed to most schools, but they might not be in place until the week of September 20th. Until then, the government is authorizing pharmacies to provide free tests for staff. Last week, the Toronto District School Board put in a request to the Ministry of Education to require eligible students to get immunized. And here's a live look at the Toronto skyline. A little cloudy out there with a chance of showers tonight and a low of 13. Colette's back now with our extended forecast, and I'm sure lots of students are hoping for that chance of showers to clear up for their first day back at school.
Thanks, Talia. Yeah, we're in this situation, you know, where we're between two systems. So the one that's exited the province to the east, and this other one that's really developing in northwestern Ontario. So some of the storminess towards Kenora and Thunder Bay, and that carries on into tomorrow, but really starts spreading eastward. So for the lower Great Lakes region, we are looking at a fair day for Tuesday. Pretty important, as many kids, not all, but many going back to school. So we'll have dry and sunnier conditions after some morning fog. So do be aware a few areas could have some reduced visibility in the early morning hours, but then it's more towards the evening and overnight we get into some of the storminess coming our way. And I've got temperatures by the end of the week marked as cool. Really, they're seasonal, but we've had such hot and humid weather and everything, it's hard to kind of keep things in perspective. So it's going to just feel cooler, even though maybe it's where we should be seasonally, at least for those daytime highs, okay? So looking at this, through the overnight, we are seeing things kind of drying out, the winds calming. Tomorrow, though, they pick back up from the south to southwest. We also start to see with the daytime heating, the timing is going to be really crucial here. I've stopped this. This is at 9, so we could still have enough energy from the sun to get into some severe weather from Parry Sound through the Saugeen Shores back towards Sarnia, Windsor area, some heavy downpours, strong wind at least, but the risk of some severe weather, so we'll be watching that carefully. By the evening hours, it pushes towards the GTA, and through the overnight and early morning Wednesday, we see that moving through the Ottawa Valley. So still some instability even behind that, so a few isolated showers certainly possible elsewhere into Wednesday too. Tonight, some of that patchy fog, the numbers through the overnight hours and the heat coming in out ahead of that system, right, as you get into that warm sector. So 30, but feeling certainly warmer than that around the GTA. Comfortable sleeping weather tonight. Look out for a few areas with reduced visibility in the morning, pumping those numbers up, even upper 20s for the St. Catharines region. And then through the Ottawa Valley, same thing with some of these areas with a little bit of fog, but a really nice day for tomorrow. Your winds will start to pick up too, but not quite as strong as elsewhere in the province that we'll be seeing. So I'm giving the forecast, the daytime hours anyway, an A+, back to school. And then we get into some of that instability and some of those more seasonable, but slightly cooler temperatures towards the end of the week.
Thanks, Colette. Well, if you grew up in the 90s or if you had children during those years, you will likely remember CBC's iconic Theodore tugboat. Nowadays, the 20-meter replica is visiting the Great Lakes. The crew is educating Canadians about water conservation and restoration. Amy Dodge has more from Windsor.
Theodore, too, certainly knows how to draw a crowd.
We just saw it from the hotel window, and it's something you can't miss, so we had to come down and see it.
The yellow tug, famous for its bright eyes, friendly smile, and red hat, is a replica. Theodore Tugboat was the title character of a children's television show that aired on CBC from 1993 to 2001. In the show, Theodore lives in the big harbor with all his friends. The show used radio-controlled tugboats, but this replica, built in Dayspring, Nova Scotia in 2000,
Welcome to Theodore Tugboat,
is driven by Captain Caitlin Simpson. And she does so from this chair.
Would you like to come sit in Theodore's captain's chair?
Ooh, that's super special.
And she looks through this window, not the big eyes as some may think.
How do you see through that?
I have a couple nose prints on some of these portholes, that's for sure. But I also supplement that with our security system here.
Simpson is driving the boat through the Great Lakes to draw more people to life on the water. She says in the coming years, the industry will need people.
So it's a bit of an old boys club sort of right now, and all those gentlemen are kind of getting near retirement age. So as soon as they retire, we're looking for new skilled people to kind of fill in the blanks and fill in for them.
And sometimes that starts with a conversation with a generation who watched the show.
Yes, absolutely. We both watched it when we were kids and rewatched it in preparation for today.
And his daughter, a newer generation, is still fascinated with the big red hat. Amy Dodge, CBC News, Windsor.
Popular actor Michael K. Williams, who starred in HBO's The Wire, has died. New York police say he was found dead in his apartment today. Williams portrayed Omar Little, a character known for robbing drug dealers on the HBO show. He also acted in Boardwalk Empire and the film 12 Years a Slave. NYPD say his death is being investigated as a possible drug overdose. He was 54 years old. For fans of the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts, Labor Day is always special. The rivals have a long history of squaring off in the Labor Day Classic. Today marked the 50th meeting between these two teams on the holiday. And after a year off, this match holds some special significance. Greg Ross has more.
He has to scamper, throws off the back leg, and Ungerer, straight arm, sideline. Is it a touchdown? Yes, it is.
Beating the rival Argonauts was just the cherry on top of what was already a very special Labor Day Classic in Hamilton.
We've been waiting for this forever.
While it may have felt like forever for some fans, it's actually been 659 days since the Tiger Cats played a game at Tim Hortons Field before today.
Worth the wait. The feeling you get walking back up the gates?
The feeling was festive, so much so it had some confused over what holiday they were actually celebrating.
Last night it was like going to bed thinking it was Christmas morning the next day. We knew that it was the big day today.
Only 15,000 fans were allowed inside for the game, yet the stadium was still full of atmosphere.
Yeah, I think the wait really jacked up everyone's intensity in there.
Just to get back in with the crowd and a few friends and sitting.
It was, exciting, it was uplifting.
That energy coming out of the stands could be felt all the way down on the field.
It's magical, man. I mean, you can feel it in there. I know you can. There's a buzz on this ground right now that I haven't felt in a long time, with COVID and everything. I love these fans, man, and we're just trying to put on a show for them.
Yeah, it was a great, phenomenal environment. Hamilton has some really quality fans here, and, they were loud and they brought the energy. And, that fuels us on the field as well.
In the end, it was the hometown Tiger Cats beating the Argos 32-19. These same two teams will face each other again at BMO Field in Toronto on Friday. Greg Ross, CBC News, Hamilton.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Good night.